everyone's in. Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As I say, welcome to this PG Dip workshop series. As you know, I'll perhaps just show you that just to all of you have probably received the schedule already. Now, Emma, can you see my screen?
I can see, yes.
Okay, perfect. So
No, you were still busy. I can't really see you busy selecting something still, or did you already
no,
open up a
I'm
document?
sharing, so you can't see
Okay,
the.
now I can. So I'm seeing the schedule now.
Yeah,
The
perfect.
new and yeah. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So this is the schedule for new students, but new or returning students can, you're not limited to this. If there's anything you're interested in, this is the workshop series. I'm not quite sure, as I say, how the setup of the meeting is because I did not get the option to record via Teams. However, I'm recording via a screen recorder, so yeah. So this is a schedule for new students, and then there is a schedule for returning students. So, and new students can obviously also return, can also attend the, this specific series. So I have forwarded to the students in my department, and the rest of you, this is available on Blackboard for postgraduate students. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. I'm just quickly going to open some of my documents, and then we can get started. So postgraduate, we need to go to research workshops, we need to go to research development. And we will start off with library literature research. I will just open it as a PDF. Now, Emma, just to check that you can see this CPUT library search.
I'm waiting. Yes, I can see. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, I'm just going to open all the other documents as well. So let's just open. We'll open the notes, and we'll open the PP. Right. Okay. Just by way of introduction, let me just introduce myself. So, by the way, I can email these documents to you as well. So just take down my email address because there's no chat, so you can't drop your email. So if you want the documents, you can email me. Alternatively, I will place it on Blackboard for those of you who have access for the postgraduate study group on Blackboard. Later on tonight, I will upload all the documents as well. Just by way of introduction, my name's Rodney Duffett. Tonight, we are going to consider topic selection, research proposal, as well as the library search. I did present this very same workshop on last year. So the YouTube video for last year's workshop is on is already on YouTube. So if you want to watch last year's presentation, however, before I upload this on Blackboard, I will again upload this on YouTube, and so I will put the 2024 link on YouTube because sometimes things happen and you can't access Blackboard, so then it's always nice to have the YouTube link. But just take note of my email address for those of you who do want me to email you the material. I'll be happy to do that. So you can just drop me a mail because, as I say, I have no way of getting your contact details. Okay, any questions before we start? If you have no questions, I won't be able to see any hands. So now, Emma, I'm not quite sure what you'll be able to see when I share the screen. I think you may be able to see the people. So I think maybe I will just pause at, once I've presented this, then, I don't think Yeah, I think the library literature search is not so long, but Naima, if you do see a hand, you can just make me aware of it.
I'll do so, no problem.
Thank you so much. And then I will, yeah, deal with those. So I'm going to, it kind of makes sense to do the topic selection first and then jump to the library literature search and then go to the actual research proposal guidelines. So let's start. So the first step is searching, well, to your research, is searching and identifying a suitable research topic. And generally, in our department, we don't, we don't want to accept the student if they don't have a topic, and well, we require them to do a concept paper and they have an understanding of their topic. So, how do you find a topic? Well, it's simple. It's read, 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 and read some more. You can also even look at popular press articles, such, what's happening in the newspapers, magazines, well, who reads newspapers anymore, but websites, blog, online sources, a very popular website in our department, the marketing department, is Biz Community. So you trying to identify, a topic that is of interest to other people and is of interest to yourself, and it's researchable. So you've got to vet the topic at the end of the day, but we'll get to that. Also, so that's maybe one way of finding the topic. An even better way to find the topic is to read academic work, master's and doctoral theses, journal articles, and textbooks. Obviously, the most readily available is journal articles. So I will be showing you how to access that tonight. And journal articles reveal a lot of research gaps and a mandate for future research in the limitations section. So that is another place where you can start. Once you've got a broad idea of your what you want to do, your next step is to go and search journal articles. Then, other words, to vet your topic to say, look here, it is suitable. I'm just not sure if there's anyone waiting in the lobby. So just
I've
also,
admitted already, no, I've already admitted, don't worry.
okay, thank you very much. Right. Your camera's on. You don't need to have it on for now. Okay. Right. Thank you, Naima. Then I can focus on the presentation and not worry about all the admin. So academic work is key. So once you've sort of got an idea of what you want to do, you need to read academic work, and we'll get to all of that later. You can also refer to
Sorry, Rodney.
Yes.
Rodney.
Yes.
We can only see Muzi. We can't see anything. Muzi is still sharing his. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. It just takes a bit of a while. So you're back to the presentation? Great. So current and completed research, if you go to Sabinet, I'll show you that later. It's on one of the CPUT databases. You don't have to go through the database either. You can just search Sabinet, current and completed research in Google, and you should find the link. And so that lists all the theses that have been done in South Africa, and they're listed on this website, and so that will also give you a good idea of what's been done in this country, because you could find a topic that's been done overseas quite extensively, but hasn't received much attention in South Africa. We generally are a bit behind with trends of America and Europe. So they usually take a while for us to catch up with academic research. So that could be a research gap for you as well, finding overseas studies and replicating them or adapting them for South Africa. Obviously, discuss your possible research topics or interest areas with academics, colleagues, students, mentors, and other people. That's also good. Right, the feasibility of your research topic. So these are questions you can ask yourself when coming up with your topic. Is the research topic relevant to the discipline? So in my department, it's marketing. In your departments, it could be, sports management, tourism, accounting, retail, entrepreneurship, whatever, office management. There could be many fields. Will the topic keep you interested for 2 to 4 years? So for masters, If you're a full-time student, you should complete in 1 to 3 years. And if you're a part-time student, you should finish from 2 to 4 years. If you're a doctoral student, you have up to 6 years that you could be busy with the same topic. So, yeah, will this research topic or trend be relevant in 5 years? So, you don't want to start a topic and 1 year later it's disappeared. So, now if you want to do research on COVID, okay, COVID's still around. There were many, many articles on it now. But if you want to now start a fresh research on COVID, are people really interested in this still? So that's just an example. Have you identified a suitable research gap? Which I'm going to spend an extensive period of time speaking about research gaps. So, yeah, we'll speak about that later. Will you get permission to conduct the study and access to the respondents to conduct the research? So if it's at a certain company, like let's just say you want to do research at V&A Waterfront, I can tell you now you will not get permission. So you need to also just make sure that the people you want to interview, if you're doing qualitative research, or you want to survey, if you're doing quantitative or whatever methodology you're using, you need to make sure that you get access to those people, that you'll get permission, because obviously you ultimately need to get ethical clearance. And in order to do that, you need to get a permission letter from the company or organization where you want to collect the data. Can the research topic be empirically tested? In other words, is it researchable? So you may have quite an abstract topic which is very difficult to research. Obviously, there's other means to do it, like analyzing documents and not doing much primary research, but then that also gets not complicated, but then at the end of the day, you've got to decide, what is my contribution to knowledge? Is there any contribution? Do you have the money, time, and ability? And then does the topic have practical and theoretical implications? So again, is it of use to industry or academics? Or, will it have any contribution to knowledge? Whether it's master's or doctorate, even at master's level, you will make some degree of contribution to knowledge. Is the topic significant enough to warrant research? So what? Who cares? So those are questions you've got to ask. And then, will an opportunity be missed if the research is not conducted? So these are questions you can ask yourself when deciding on a topic. Okay, let's just move down. Right, so various components, and I've given a practical example throughout my presentation, just so that we have something to work with. So generally, the elements that need to be included in the topic is, or may not be included directly, but factors you need to consider is a theoretical framework or model. So the example
it doesn't move, right?
Hasn't it moved?
Okay, move now. Thank you.
Okay.
Move now. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Naima. Just keep me posted. It helps that I don't need to worry. So the theoretical framework, so say, for example, you decided that based on your reading, the most appropriate frameworks for your research could be the technological acceptance TAM model, acceptance model, and advertising value model. So if you know that, it's going to help shape your title. So before you come up with your title, it's a good idea to have read widely enough to know the theoretical frameworks you're going to use. So the broad theme in this instance, as example, could be social media marketing communication. A specific topic is social media advertising. So, advertising is only one component of marketing communication. Your particular industry or product categories. So, is it located in an industry? In this instance, the example, I say, well, we're going to look at various product categories, not one specific. We could have a question in a questionnaire that gets people to tick various product categories. Target group of analysis or sample, who do you want to interview? So you could select Gen Z, so those are your people generally aged about 26 or younger. It could be Gen Y, so they're born generally between 1982 and 2000, or it could be earlier, 1995, depending on the definition. Gen X, so those are your people sort of born before 1982, and your baby boomers, they roughly now, when Gen X was probably born from about 1960 onwards. So those are your people born before 1960. The baby boomers, yeah. So yeah, who are you to? Oh, it could be a specific businesses. It could be small businesses. It could be people within a certain organization. So that's another common theme. So yeah, who you're going to interview. The context, you always need to mention where the study is going to be conducted. Cape Town, South Africa, Cape Metropole, Western Cape, Johannesburg, wherever, Gauteng. So you need to give a location. And then, so for the purposes of this, an example of a title could be, e.g., the influence of social media advertising on Gen Z's attitudes, if it wanted to be broad, or you could say on Gen Z's purchase intention, because that would be the main dependent variable of your model in Cape Town, could be a title. Just a few other, oh, let's just go down. Okay. Now, Emma, it may take a while to show. I'm on research title Other Guidelines. Um, Titles generally range from 12 to 15 words. So they don't want a title that's 30 words long. They want it as short as possible. It needs to reflect important independent, dependent, and location variables. I'll talk a bit about that later if you don't know what that is. They do not want you starting at CPUT with a title with a present participle. In other words, such as investigating or analyzing. They don't want it so you can say an analysis or an investigation. But if you look at my next point, avoid useless, meaningless words such as an analysis, an investigation, a study, an exploration, because all studies are that. Um, so rather try and avoid using words such as that because, yeah, that's what studies are. Or, yeah, add the context, as I mentioned, and then refer to the CPUT repository as well for the electronic theses and dissertations, where you have access to what was done at CPUT and obviously SABINet. And all journal, so that could give you lots of examples of titles of theses. And every journal article essentially is a mini thesis. So every journal article is, important and serves an example of a title that you could adapt for a thesis, particularly if it's international research and you want to do something similar in South Africa. So that is the title aspect. And then now I'm going to jump to the literature search and then I'll go to the proposal. Are there any questions concerning titles or comments that you would like to add? Um, if you're all happy, then I will go to the library literature search. I don't know if the PDF's causing a delay, so maybe let me just open in PowerPoint.
There's no hands for any questions, Rodney.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to rather display this in PowerPoint mode. Maybe that is better. Now, Emma, can you see the PowerPoint? Oh, I don't want
Not
to.
yet.
Not yet, but I'm going to open another one. I'm going to open the library literature search.
Okay. It's busy opening. It's busy opening now.
Okay, but I think that may be a bit better. Is it open yet, Naima?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'll tell you the minute it's open.
Yep.
Okay, it's open now.
Okay, you see CPUT
Is this
library.
the PowerPoint?
Yeah, CPUT
Yes,
library
yes,
literature
yes.
search.
That's right, yes.
Okay, perfect. So once you more or less know what you want to do, you need to, and you've read a bit, you have a few ideas, or even if you don't know what your title is yet, but you're playing around with ideas, you need to search with literature. And as I say, you need to read, 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 read. So and I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint and then I will practically demonstrate what I've shown. I've taken screenshots of everything so that I don't go in and out because as you can see, it takes a while before it shows on your side. So you go to the CPT library website, and so I show you this is what the screen links. So you would go cput.ac and you click on library. Then you select research support. And if you select research support services, you'll see it over here. It gives you the institutional repository here. It gives you electronic theses. So these are all the theses. When you graduate, you need to submit, or before you graduate, you have to submit your thesis to the library, and all those CPUT theses get stored here. There's other useful things. Isango is where you're going to upload your data sets. Also, as a condition to graduate, you need to upload your data set. So all of those useful things are here. So websites here. So just a reminder, you go into CPT, click library, you click research support, and you will see this. You also see databases, and this is where you're going to access the journals. Not by journals, you're going to access them by databases. So yeah, so you can see institutional repository, electronic theses. This will give you open access to the research. The institutional repository is where a lot of academics also place their journal articles on the CPUT website. So you can also access a certain amount of there, and theses are, yeah. Then, yeah, so I've just opened the institutional repository, and here you can see what it looks like. Publications, repository entries, you can search for people, you can search here, and that will, pop up whatever. So say I'm interested in social media marketing communication, I could type it in here, and so it would give you the results. Okay. So the topic that I'm using as an example, and obviously it could be anything, whatever your topics are, you would use as keywords is, so important words here is social media advertising or social media marketing communications, and then Facebook advertising, TikTok, all the different platforms, Instagram advertising, if I want to look for specific platforms. The scales or the attitudes that I want to look at based on the two models is the advertising value model includes entertainment, informativeness, credibility, and irritation. And you could also perceive value. Whereas the technological acceptance model includes perceived ease of use, perceived usefulness, intention to purchase. And then obviously the two models I'm using, TAM and advertising value model, and the target groups. So you could put in a number of these keywords, and obviously the more keywords you put in, the more specific your search results will become. And we will look at that, as I say, later. I'll actually log into the library and we can do some of these searches just very briefly because I've got a lot to cover. So these are keywords that you can use to search, to try and find sources in your interest area. So yeah. Now you can select databases. So as I showed you, you saw databases, and if you click databases, now we're going to go to the journals. Then you can scroll down and you'll see Emerald, Science Direct, Google Scholar. These are my top 3 databases that I search in. But then there's also SARBInet reference. Remember, that's where you can find, the current and completed research is under SARBInet. There's SARBInet reference, SAE publications, current completed research. All of these are under SARBInet. So SARBInet reference, SAE publications are also part of SARBInet, and current and completed research is also part of SARBInet. And essay dissertations and theses, so you could, that's international research, WorldCat dissertations as well if you want to look for international theses. The top 3 I use, I always start with Emerald and Science Direct. Science Direct, by the way, is part of Elsevier. Google Scholar will go across Emerald and Science Direct. So if you search on Google Scholar and you find an Emerald article, you must log into the library as a library student, and then you'll get access to a greater number of articles under Emerald and Science Direct and the other other databases. So Google Scholar will search across databases, but it's not as user friendly to search for because it doesn't allow you to search in the title. It only allows you to search according to the date, and it also has a lot of predatory type journals as well that you're going to find that aren't as good quality, but nevertheless it does allow you to find the Taylor and Francis and the Wiley. At CPUT we don't have a a relationship. I mean, you've got very limited Wiley and Taylor and Francis access, whereas Emerald and Science Direct, we get access to a lot of those journal articles. But Google Scholar will cut across all the databases and find anything relevant, be it a thesis or a journal article or a book chapter. Google Scholar will help you find it. Of course, once you've found it, it's a question of getting access to it. And that's what I will show you as well tonight, how to try and get articles that you don't have access to. Right, so if you scroll down here, you see all of the different databases. And just to show you, if you click on Academic Search Premier, you would need to then click Open Database. You would need to put in your student password, if you your student number, if you're a CPUT student, and your password. If you're a staff member, you'd put in your CPUT number and your password. And then you would click Open Database. There you'd put your details in, log in, and now Open Database. Oh, that's a duplicate, and here you're in. So now you can search in this through CPUT, and you should have more access to a great number of articles than if you can also access it outside CPUT, but you won't have access to as many articles. It's always also good to do an advanced search, because then you can search in the title, in the abstract. We'll see that later. If you click on current and completed research, this is what it looks like. You see this is SARBINet. So this SARBINet is mostly South African and African research. So if you're looking for South African articles in local publications, this is a good platform to find. And here you can see current completed research will help you find theses, but there are other places you can search in SARBINet. Here's current completed research. So yeah, you can click Emerald. This is what it looks like if you click in. And again, you can do an advanced search. Science Direct is part of Elsevier. This is what it looks like. Again, it allows you to do advanced research, whereas Google Scholar doesn't. Google Scholar, you see, you can just search. This is what SARBINet looks like. So you can search for South African journals if you clicked on SARBINet. And yeah, so I always say use the advanced search functions. Be sure to use these functions to refine your search. So you can search in the title. That's going to give you a very specific search. You can search in the abstract or any other keywords. You can search in the keywords. And then you can search by year. Look here, when you're initially trying to sort of find information about your topic, obviously you want to be able to find a lot of recent sources. So if there's only ancient research on this topic, maybe it's not the best topic. Like I had a lot of students wanting to do TV topics, and I thought, TV's and still big in South Africa, but not nearly as big as it was. You'd be better rather doing these video on demand devices or box office or these streaming services, Disney Channel or Netflix, Yeah, that would be more of interest than doing just plain old TV. It obviously depends on the angle. So, yeah, there's not many, you're not going to find much recent research in TV because it's considered a dinosaur now. So, that's also a gauge when you're searching. If you're finding nothing on your topic, it doesn't mean that it's a good topic. It could mean it's a bad topic. If you click advanced search, you can see on Elsevier here, it allows you to search in the title and it allows you to search in the title, abstract, or keyword. So this allows you a very specific search. It allows you to search the years. Those are the main things. I don't bother with the rest. Usually I just take the years and the title, abstract is where I search. Other tips to search. So if you go to Google Scholar or even Google and you type in .pdf at the end, you will then find all the open access articles. So if you say Google Scholar PDF or social media advertising PDF, even in Google, it will give you a lot of articles. Not necessarily the best quality articles, but you will be able to download them. Okay. So here's an example. If I type in social media advertising in PDF, you'll see here it gives some from even ResearchGate will get this, and others, Atlantic Press, you can see it gives you quite a few, and it's PDF. It means if you click on any of these, you can download it, but it's not necessarily the best quality. Other tips, yeah. So also you can use Google Scholar for your reference list. So I'll practically demonstrate this, but if you go into Google Scholar and you type and social media and you click on a certain article and you click on cite, when you click on cite, it gives you all different ways to, which you can use for your reference list. I always click on Harvard, but it's not the same as CPUT. You need to delete this PP and replace it with a colon, and this 42 should not be in italics. The title should be in italics, but each word of the journal should be in uppercase. So you've got to make a few adjustments to CPUT's reference, but that's a good way to get your journal article. Otherwise, also always double click on the hyperlink. So we clicked on this investigating. So click on the hyperlink just to check that this information is accurate. Particularly when accessing theses, it always says it's a doctoral thesis, but when I click on this hyperlink investigating the impact, then I see it's a master's student or a bachelor thesis. So don't trust the site 100%. Take it, it gives you most of the information. Click on then the hyperlink and double check that it is accurate that it's given you. So just to go back, if you copy and paste the article into Google Scholar's search function, or you actually did a search itself and clicked on the link here, then you can click on cite. You see, click on cite, and that gives you the references, most of the referencing details. But it's best to click on the actual article afterwards just to double check that this information is correct. Click on the site. CPT is Harvard. You need to change things, so they're and to and, PP to colon. Sometimes the volume and issue numbers missing. So then you actually need to click on the hyperlink. Double check all journal sources do not have a volume and issue upon completion of assignments to see that these are subsequently allocated. So later on, like say you use some references in your proposal now later on, and they didn't have a volume or issue number. In other words, they were published online, but they're still waiting for their volume and issue number. Before you submit your thesis, all of those journal articles that you may have found 2 years ago that didn't have a volume and issue number, you then need to go double check and cut and paste the title in Google Scholar to see if they haven't added the volume and issue, which often changes the year. Because the year that the article gets allocated is the year when it gets its volume and issue. So it may have been published online 2 years ago and get its volume and issue number. So just take note of that. I'll practically demonstrate these things quickly afterwards. Another site that you could use, and some people are a bit, saying it's unethical, but sometimes you can't get journal articles anywhere. So, and CPUT blocks the site actually. So if you log in with your CPUT details, you can't get into it at all. But it's a site that, this is what it looks like, Sci-Hub. If you cut and paste the title in and you click open, not all the time, but a lot of articles, you can see that here it gives you. Sorry, there's someone that needs to be muted. Naima, I'm not sure if you can see the names and you're able to mute people.
I've muted him now, yes.
Thank you so much. So Sci-Hub, as I say, some people frown on it, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of articles I couldn't access anywhere, and I plugged it into Sci-Hub, particularly if you're not a registered student or, you've left CPT and you want to get articles and you go and they don't give you access, particularly the older articles, not really the most recent articles, but you'll be able to access a lot of articles. So you go in here, you cut and paste the title, all the DOI number, that 10 number that carries on, you cut and paste it in here, you type it in, you click open, and you can see here it gave, in this instance, it gave the article. Okay, so and then the other good one is ResearchGate, which is basically social media for academics. So most academics have a research. There's another one called Academia, which is more American. I did initially go on there, but I don't know. I don't like the feel of it, so I've just stuck to ResearchGate. So all of my research is on ResearchGate. If you search for my name, you'll find my profile. And just about all the articles, bar 1 or 2, which are still embargoed, you'll be able to get access to all of my journal articles. But you can even search for journal articles in ResearchGate. And if they don't give you the option direct access, you can request the article. So that's another option. ResearchGate can give you access to a lot of research. Most top academics in the world are on it, so you'll be able to access a lot of sources there. So this is what ResearchGate looks like. You do have to join it and log in, but I mean, if you're a student, it's really not much to join. It's for free. You don't doesn't really ask much information, and then that just opens up millions and millions and millions of journal articles to you. And this is what it looks like. Um, and here you can search for people, research, and articles. If you still don't have access to an article, so you've gone to the CPUT library and you can't access it, and you've tried ResearchGate and you've tried Sci-Hub, sometimes if you just Google the title, you get lucky and you can actually um, it's placed on some other platform where you can get it. So that's also works. If you're unregistered a student, or maybe you leave later, you can still have open access to CPT's repository. You can still go directly to Emerald, Science Direct, and all of those platforms, and then you can try and get the articles you find. If they're not open access, you can try Sci-Hub, you can try ResearchGate to get the article. If you still can't get it, go to Google Scholar, or just go to Google. Um, last resort, just go to Google, and you'll be surprised how many articles that you couldn't access through the database, that if you just cut and paste the title, not even in Google Scholar, but in Google, you actually get it somewhere else. Now, obviously, we have to talk about AI. AI should obviously not be used to write your thesis for you, but there's absolutely nothing stopping you from going to sites that help you find sources. Now, I'm not going to practically demonstrate this because basically we can speak the whole night and just searching for sources, but some very good sites. One is Connected Papers, and basically, if you paste an article title in there, it it shows you everyone that paper cited and who cited the paper you put in. So it connects all the papers, and that allows you to. So if you found a very good article that's exactly what you want to do, and you cut and paste in Connected Papers, it will show you a lot of other relevant sources. Cite is another one. Harzings is not really AI, it's more of a database, a program, but also gives you access. And there's many others. So these are AI you can use to search for data. Personally, I prefer to the more formal methods like I've showed you. So I don't really use these sites because I've obviously learned how to use the traditional methods, but a lot of the younger students want to use these sites. So to find articles using AI, there's absolutely no harm in that whatsoever. um, so these are some good ones, and as I say, there are many others. And then popular press, obviously, your whole thesis is not going to be just journal articles and thesis and book chapters. You're going to use internet sites. So from a marketing perspective, these are some good ones. Obviously, you in your own disciplines, Biz Community, eMarketer, Memburn, News 24, Harvard, Financial Mail, Ad Focus, and etc. But that's obviously, yeah. Yes, so that's the literature search. I'm going to practically demonstrate a few things, but before I do that, are there any questions? Okay, I don't see any
I
questions. So
don't see any. I don't
yeah,
see any hands either.
yeah, thank you. So let's thank you very much, Naima. Let's go into the actual internet. And I'm just going to go into CPUT, CPUT. Okay. Now, Emma, just to check that you can see the CPUT homepage, or is it still coming?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we
Okay,
can see it. You must just, yeah, we can see it.
okay. So if you go into click on the library link, like I said, you'll be able to see, electronic theses, institutional repositories, etc., etc. But we want to, oh, my links just dropped for a second. Let's just check what's happening here.
Maybe we can't hear you.
Yes, I'm back. I'm back. I just
Okay, okay.
can you hear
Okay.
me now?
We can, yes. And
Yeah.
we not see
Sorry.
the screen anymore.
Yes, yes. I will just stop sharing and I'll share again. Yeah, I've got a backup internet, so if I go off, don't disappear. I've got a backup internet source that is yeah, I'm actually on the TP link. I actually think yeah, so I'm on the backup source. Maybe I should switch internet sources. No, we'll just leave it on that. So, okay. I do have two internet sources. So should I lose connection, don't disappear. I will just swap internet sources. Okay. So let's carry on sharing the screen. Oh, sorry. I just
I can see the CPUT
yeah. But
library credits.
I'm just going to stop again. I need to click include computer sound. Click screen. Okay, let's do it again. You can just tell me when you can see that, Naima.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. So, right. So now I'm going to go to databases and let's go to, for example, Emerald. Okay. Um, so we go to Emerald and we click on Emerald. We click Open Database. And now I type in DUFF, my name, password. Right. And now we are in Emerald. And I always click Advanced Search. Okay. Right. Naima, just to check that it is changing screens.
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. So all fields, but now you see it, if you click all fields, it allows you to search title, abstracts, etc. So let's search the abstract and let's type in social media, our specific topic, advertising, and we want to search the last 4 years or 5 years, and we click search and just give it some time. Now you can see there's 173 results. Um, so that's quite, a lot to go through. So if we go back, we can narrow this search down. Let's just see if there's anything in the title that has this. Um, and you got 25 results that have social media advertising in the title. So that's not bad. So that's a good starting point, you see. And this is just Emerald. Now you can go to Elsevier, you can go to Google Scholar, and many, many other platforms. And at CPUT, you can see you have access to all of these because it's showing you the PDF. But you may not have access to all of them. Let's just show all 50 results on the page. Let's see if there's anything you don't have access. So all of these at CPUT, it's showing the PDF. Oh, here it says view access. You don't have option to this one. So it's an examination of advertising media. So let's copy this title. It's published in 2021, yet you don't have access. And let's just go into Sci-Hub and see if we can get access to it. Do I have Sci-Hub saved as a shortcut? Yes, I do have it saved as a shortcut. And we cut and paste this title in here. Now, Emma, hopefully it's changed to the Sci-Hub page.
Yes, it has.
Okay, and we click open and let's see. Nope, we don't have access to it even on Sci-Hub. So let's just cut and paste it into Google. And here you can see it's available on Google. It's Emerald was giving Emerald. Semantic Scholar sometimes gives you access as well. And here's another one examination. If we go into ResearchGate though, it says request full text. So then you could do that. But if we go back and we look at Semantic Scholar, sometimes that gives you full access. No, it doesn't. It says view via publisher. So we go back and let's see this. Often this OIC, I think it's their institutional repository. Let's have a look and see if that gives you access. Um, No, it doesn't give you full access, unfortunately. So your best bet to get this specific article, uh, it, which you don't have access to, is ResearchGate. But I review for Emerald, so they give me tokens, so I would be able to give a token and they would give it to me. Um, but most of the other content is available, and it's the last 4 years. Here's another article that you don't have access for. Let's just try this one now in Sci-Hub. Paste its title in, open. You see, this one gave you access. Here it is. So you couldn't access it via Emerald, even logged in through the CPUT repository, but in Sci-Hub, you cut and paste the title in, and there's an article you couldn't. But if Sci-Hub didn't give you that option, I'm going to close that. You could also cut and paste it into Google and have a look. And so it's also on ResearchGate, and let's just see. You also need to request full access via ResearchGate. And here's another one. Let's just see this OUIC. Yeah, also doesn't give you the access. But Sci-Hub gave you the access. And so this is how you search, you know. And we could go back to the original search. And let's just say we want to be even more specific. Instead of just social media advertising, we want to make the search really specific. And let's just put in TAM. And let's just put in, because entertainment, you know, uh, informativeness and irritation. So that cuts across all your models. And yeah, we won't bother about the target group. And let's just search maybe in the abstract to see, is it going to find anything that specific? No results. But I think the abstract's too specific, so we just search all fields, because the more words you put in, obviously you need to broaden your search. You can't search in the title or the abstract. And let's just see if we go across all fields. Yeah, it's got 33 articles that use TAM. It's got social media advertising. It's got irritation, informative. So you see, you can, again, you could even add in, make it more specific and add in, perhaps, say you want to look at generation Y, and let's see how specific that is. And you still get 20 sources that look at generation Y and Z. So you see how you need to play around. And this is just Emerald. We haven't gone to Elsevier. We haven't gone to Google Scholar. So Google Scholar, you can put in a lot of articles. Google Scholar, you don't need to access via the institutional repository, because it won't get, because Google Scholar searches other repositories. But Emerald, Elsevier, Sabinet, etc., you do need to. So if you go to Google Scholar and we type in all of these words and we click search, then here you see it actually gives you some Emerald. Now, you've actually got access, but if you don't have access to Emerald, then log into the CPUT website and access it via the login, because sometimes you won't have access to it by Google Scholar, but when you log into Emerald via the CPUT library database, you will have access to the article. It gives you an NWAC, so this is a thesis. This looks like another thesis. Yeah, so here it gives you lots of articles that have this. But let's just say you want a custom range, so you can type 2020 to 2024, but you can't search in the title. So here it gives you articles in the last 5 years that include all of these variables that was in your library research. You could even add more. You could even add, purchase intent. And all right, let's delete that. Search. Okay, there we go. Search. And then you're still going to find articles that include lots of the variables. So Google Scholar, you can really, because you can't search in the title or abstract, you can put in more keywords. and then you got whatever you don't have access to, then cut and paste into Google, try Sci-Hub, try ResearchGate, and various ways to get it as I showed you. So that's basically how you search. I'm going to close all of these things. We don't need to open it. Any questions about searching? Or any comments that you have about searching. So it's best to go through the website for like all the databases with the exception of Google Scholar because you have more access, but you can use Google Scholar. You see searches across all the databases, and then you can log in once you've got your specific titles. Oh, that's what I wanted to show you. So if we go to just want to go to Google Scholar, I wanted to show you the cite function. So let's just type in social media advertising again, right? And we search. And so now you want to cite this article. You click cite, and here it gives you everything you need. But you see, this and here should be the abbreviated en passant, not the full and according to CPT style. Journal of Advertising, the A should be capitalized. This comma is correct. 47 should not be in italics. The volume is correct. Then you'd put colon, no space, 38 to 54. You could, if you want to include the DOI and double check this, you click on the hyperlink here, and then you will see that they give you generally more information. Well, if you scroll, oh, they give you the full access to the article here, but you can click here. Where do they give you the references here? Oh, here's the DOI they give you. So there you can copy the DOI. It's different for different publishers. There, volume 47, issue 1, 2008, all correct. And they give you the DOI number if you want that as well. It's unique identifying number. So likewise, Science Direct, this article, if you click cite, it gives you all the details. Just remember to capitalize your journal, colon, yeah. And if you want to check further, if you actually click on here, then here it gives you the DOI number, it gives you the volume here, it gives you the page numbers and all the other details. So you can see Google Scholar to get your references is quite quick just to click cite, but as I say, this information is not always 100% accurate, so always double check it against the source, but it's a quick way to get your references. So that's the search. I can tell you now we probably won't finish at 6:30. We'll go a bit beyond that. Yeah, that's the second part of the presentation. Any questions or comments, or you all happy? Okay, so we'll move to the main part of the presentation, and this is the nitty-gritty. So I will open and close the library literature search, and I can open this. Now, Emma, you can just tell me when you can see the screen.
I can see the slide.
Okay, perfect.
Topic selection.
Okay, perfect. It's just getting a bit cold, so I need to put my jacket on. Suddenly I'm busy doing some cement work outside when I came in. So, yeah. So we've already spoken about the topic and the title. So we've spoken about your title, and once you've got a rough idea of what your title is, or you have a broad idea, probably one of the most important parts of the thesis is your background to your research problem. Stated differently, it's often called the introduction as well. So but before I even go into this, sorry, I just want to show you the CPUT or the Faculty of Business proposal template, and this will, okay, we don't want to do that. Now, Emma, can you see the Word document yet?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. It looks like it's sharing better since I moved internet sources. So this is the template we use in the Faculty of Business. You know, you'd populate this. You'd have your research title, and you see here they say 12 to 15 words. So, and what you need to include. So some of this I took for my presentation, but I've added others, and your supervisors, your title. They say preferably 1 page to 250 words, but I say when you're doing your proposal initially, ignore the length restrictions. So if you want to write 5 pages for your introduction, do that. But then later you can condense it into a page, which means you have much greater quality and much greater number of sources. So initially, don't worry. I'd be worried if a student only wrote 1 page, like from the beginning, um, because then he's only probably looked at very limited sources. You should gather enough information to write 5 pages. And then you condense it, you summarize it, you create relationships between, have multiple in-text referencing. Introduction, your problem statement, rationale, aims and objectives. So this is the format my PowerPoint covers: your research questions, hypothesis, your underpinning, conceptual and theoretical framework, literature review, definition of key concepts, research paradigm, approach, design, and data collection, and then paradigm, research approach, research design, demarcation, delimitation, research methods and processes, sampling, data collection and field work, data coding, ethical, outline, research plan, limitations. Reference list followed by a summary in 250 words. So this is the format. This is what we use for proposals. As I say, I wouldn't worry about the length restrictions initially when you do it, and later, once you've read enough sources and you've populated everything, then you can condense it later. So this is what my PowerPoint and my presentation's based on. I also have notes. For this PowerPoint presentation, which give maybe a little bit more detail as well, but I pretty much try to put most of the information into the PowerPoint as well. Naima, just to check that you can see my screen again.
Yep, with the background
Okay.
of the research problem.
Perfect. So this is really important. It lays the groundwork by citing the origin of the problem. And I typically break this into 4 sections. You can even put the subheadings in your proposal initially, and then later you could leave them in, or you could delete them and then just have a paragraph for each if you have a page. So the overview or background to the research. So this section considers all the research variables that are especially in your title. So and you provide background information. So our example is the social media advertising. So you could write a few lines about social media, how it's growing and what are the top platforms, figures and stats, and social media advertising as well, the same. A bit of background, how fast it's growing, the different facts and figures, what are big platforms globally and locally. The cohort analysis, so you could talk again globally. This is what Gen Z or Y or X or whatever your topic is. So let's just say we're using Gen Z in this topic. You would then give some background. They're born in this date, and they all should have similar personalities and attitudes and tendencies, if you were to generalize it. And then you could even write a bit about your theoretical framework that you're using and the different constructs, for example, purchase intention, entertainment. You could give a bit. So that's your first, it's just giving an overview of everything that's in your topic. You could use internet sources, you can use journal articles, you can use a mix of sources. So it's just sort of locating your topic, what it's about, a bit of background information. The next section that I usually ask my students to do is the area of concern, whatever needs to justify the research. Indicate why this is a researchable problem, why is it feasible? Does the preliminary data and resources support its feasibility? So what I typically tell my students to do, I see this is cut off a bit, too much on the slide, but nevertheless. So I get them to do a search, just using like very specific searches to specifically see what has been done in South Africa, in Africa, and then across the globe. And then what you could say is the initial database revealed that there's a need for more research in South Africa or globally or whatever the case. So based on your search results, you can see this is what's been done in South Africa. So I search Google Scholar and I type in my South African social media advertising, and I put the word South Africa in. Or I go to Sabinet and I search under SAE publications, and that will give me a lot of South African sources. But you can go to Google Scholar and type in social media advertising South Africa, and all the articles that have been done on that topic that mention South Africa will also appear. So but then you could make it more specific and add in purchase intention or your cohorts, just to extract as much so that you can get a full picture in your mind what's been done in this country or what's been done globally if it's a very new topic. And then you describe that search base. So you can say a search was conducted and we found 22 articles on this topic in South Africa. However, globally we found, thousands of articles or whatever. So you could say based on the fact that there's not as much research in South Africa. I'm very careful what words I use here. Never ever say there's little research or there's no research. We'll get to that later. So you always, I've included something there that will speak to that. So you can say based on this, we found 5 studies in South Africa and many hundreds overseas. This points to a need for further research in SA based on whatever your specific topic is. It's a new phenomenon, so fast growth amongst whoever. So you can say that social media is growing and continually evolving, and you can find a lot of journal articles or even popular press. You can go to Statistica, you can go to Social Media Today. There's lots of sites. Memburn's another one, and there's another site I'm trying to think of. Anyway, there's lots of sites that give stats. Meltwater is another one that gives a lot of stats. So you can say this is the growth and this, so therefore it's of interest to marketers, to academics. And then what you can't see in this slide is increasing usage among certain groups. So you can say again, the younger consumers are more looking at these platforms. So you find sources. Okay. The third is very, very important, and I call this section the research gap section, observed. And there's a big difference between observed gaps according to the next one, which is mandate for further research. So again, just to say, have others conducted this research in this area? Is there a gap worth exploring? Use a lot of multiple in-text referencing to observe research gaps. So by this observation, I mean you conduct a research in South Africa and globally you find maybe a couple of hundred journal articles. And then later on, I'll show you summarize those articles. And when you summarize those articles, list the country, list the sample, list the industry, list the approach, list the sample size, the platform, and the theoretical frameworks they used. In your summaries of those articles, just list, based on the abstract, you should be able to get most of this information. And then what you could say in this specific section, research gaps observed. So these studies aren't saying there's a need for more research. You just observing they were conducted in this country, they looked at this target group, this industry, they were this sample size, they looked at these frameworks. So you observing. You could say that there are many, many studies on this conducted in the US, and you can in-text reference 10 recent sources. And in Europe, and you can in-text reference 10 different sources. However, in South Africa, it's noted that there are not as many studies, so therefore there is a need for more research. So take note of this here, this paragraph I've said at the bottom. Never state that there's little, no, lack, dearth, limited, since this is an insufficient reason to justify your research. Just because it hasn't been researched is not a reason why your research to conduct the research. Because if you say there's no or little lack of research, it assumes that you have every single source that was ever written on this topic in the world at your disposal, which is not the case. So rather state that based on the above caps, so based on the fact that there were not as many studies in South Africa, or that there was many studies in different countries, there is a need for further research in South Africa, or additional study is required, or greater inquiry is necessary, or any cinnamon. You can just paraphrase these phrases in 10 different ways because you don't want to repeat it over and over. So you can say, hence, because of all these other studies in other countries, and there was not, and you can also break it up into developed nations and developing countries. So if you just go to Wikipedia and type developed versus developing countries, it will give you a list. So South Africa is a developing country. You can say, based on all this research in first world countries or developed countries, there is a need for further research in developed countries. Thank you, Naima. In developed, developing countries. And then, but you see how many you can in-text reference each source. Likewise, I cannot samples institutions. Let's just say, let's go to different platforms. So you can say there's much research focusing on, let's just say we're using a specific platform, TikTok. So social media, you can say lots of research was conducted on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, which is now called X. However, there are not as many studies on TikTok. Therefore, further research is needed or required. Or theoretical frameworks. So now you're looking at the advertising volume model and TAM together. So you can say a lot of studies either look at TAM or the advertising value model, but few studies combine this. Well, you don't want to use the word few. You say they either look at this or that, but not both. So therefore, there's a need for further research. So here, you see, you can in-text reference 100 sources here without blinking an eye if you've summarized them all, which I will show you later in the literature review. So this is you just observing what other studies have done, but not they're not saying more research need to be done. So this is how I do this third section, just by observing what they've done in terms of these type of variables or other aspects. It could be something very specific that you look at. So it's observed. They've mentioned it, but they haven't stated a need for more research. And so this gives you an opportunity to have many, many references. The fourth element is a mandate for research. This is where other people actually mandate certain research gaps. The authors expressly state the need for further research versus the above research gap section where you simply observe that the research was conducted in a different country or amongst a different cohort. For examples, authors could specifically state that there's a need for further research in different countries, different samples, the same variables as above, but now they're stating it. So typically you read the introduction and the limitations section. Specifically, the limitations are often called limitations and future research or further research section. And then they state if they've got a similar topic to you, there's a need for more research in different countries or bigger sample sizes or different industries, or using, they could be a qualitative study and they say there's a need for quantitative research. They could say different sample sizes or more representative sample sizes. A lot of studies just focus on students, so you can't generalize that data because a student is a different type of creature altogether. I know I was one as well. Students are, a category on their own to the Homo sapien race. They are just different. So you can't generalize it. So a lot of studies use student samples and then they say, however, so that's a gap for you to not just look at students, but look at other general populace, people that are working, people that are not working, but onto students. They could say there's a need for research amongst different platforms. So they expressly state it. And this is the strongest form of justification for your research. If in these areas or other areas you could find 5 studies for each of these that state there's a need for more research in different countries or Different cultures is often the way they put it, but a culture is the same as, very similar to a country. And so if you find just a couple of sources for each of these, and you can say such and such state a need for more countries, and this comes from your summaries. You summarize the work. So when you summarize the work, as I'll show in the literature review, you can then group together these state a need for more research in different countries, and you use it in your justification for your research. Because if you have like 20 different sources stating a need for different research on your topic or related to your topic, no one can say that your research is not needed. So very important. So remember this, they specifically state a need for further research, whereas this one you just observing. They just did research in this country, but they didn't necessarily state a need for more research. And then lastly, you conclude the introduction, it's called the introduction or background to research, with a statement provides the main aim of your study. So hence, based on the aforementioned research gaps, the main aim of the study is whatever it is. Every journal article's introduction is an example. Every thesis will provide an example of the background to the research problem. So every journal article you read has an introduction. It's the same as the background to the research problem. So you've got lots of examples. You could easily cite 40, 50 sources in your research proposal on this section alone if you've read enough. The problem statement, I see it's also been cut off. It's not cut off in the PDF, but I think I'm going to stick to the PowerPoint, even though it cut off a few words here. The statement of the research problem or the problem statement, basically this describes the heart of the research. What is the problem? In other words, what is your topic about is another word, I suppose, topic for problem. The context, the extent, why is the problem important? Have authors identified it? If already research, what are the research gaps? So basically, the problem statement consists of the following components and is essentially an expansion of your research title, but just stated as a problem. I think I must just switch, to, I just want to switch to the PDF shows it better. Now, Emma, just to check that you can see the PDF fine. Not yet.
We on the fourth, not yet, no.
Okay, I'm just going to where I was because it doesn't cut anything off, whereas the PowerPoint is cutting it off. You can just tell me when you see the problem statement continued.
Okay, so we on the problem statement continued.
Perfect. Because the PowerPoint's cutting off my last line and the PDF doesn't. That's why I PDF'd it. Thank you very much. So I've just moved to the PDF. So these are the variables that I would include. Again, it's your theoretical framework, broad theme, specific, particular industry, target groups, general context, general problems. So here, for example, if you take all these factors, the general problem, social media advertising requires further investigation in terms of various attitudes based on the combination of the A, VM, and TAM. So it's advertising value and TAM among young cohorts. A specific problem, what influence does social media advertising have on purchase intention among Gen Y and Z? So this is the problem, but before this is what you would end the problem statement section with. Is what I do is I've covered the similar topics as these. In other words, these research gaps where you've used multiple referencing, so you didn't give much specific detail about the studies, but in the problem statement I focus on more individual research gaps. So this specific study in 2-3 lines noted these research gaps, that there should be more research in different countries and amongst different cohorts. Whereas this other study agreed that there should be more research based on this. So I focus on the mandate for more research based on your background to your research problem. In that section, you take the studies that you used multiple in-text reference, where you group 10 studies, and now you look at them individually. And you group them as well, but you don't use as much multiple in-text, but you group them. So this batch said countries, this batch said different cohorts, this batch said on this specific topic that you're doing. And then you actually give like a line or two of each study. And then based on that, after that, you give your general problem and your specific problem. Then based on these research gaps, the general problem is this, further research is required, and the specific aim of the study is this. So every thesis will provide an example of this section. Again, this section could have 20 to 30 sources. And obviously, in your research proposal, you know it's shorter, but in your thesis you can have a longer section. So you know you have 1 page for your background to your research problem proposal. You can have 2 or 3 pages in your thesis. So just remember that. So that's how I do the problem. Focus on the individual research gaps. Yeah. Then the rationale, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but basically indicate why this research is significant, the original contribution, who might benefit, further investigations, expected outcomes, results and contributions. So you can use much of the information you used in your background to your research problem, except you state in this sort of context. So it's similar. Okay, I need to use the mouse because it goes backwards. Right, so the aims and objectives. Again, I'm not going to spend as much time because, well, I mean, I'm going to go past half past. I think we'll finish like by about 6:45. If you need to go, you can get the recording. I must just check that everything's recording fine here. Yes, it's recording fine. So the aims, objectives, and envisaged goals, obviously in terms of the problem statement, this is what you want to state. So the aim is a broad statement of what the research attempts to accomplish and and the objectives are basically smaller, bite-sized, achievable outcome research intentions. They're concise statements to describe what the research will accomplish. You use words such as to discover, to determine, to evaluate, to ascertain, to explore, examine, and explain. All the objectives should help achieve the research aim. So you start with a broad aim, which is essentially the reformation of your title, just spelt out a bit more. And then the objectives are a bit more specific and divided into primary and secondary objectives. And I give you an example. So the aim of this study is to consider Generation Z's attitudes due to social media advertising. The attitudes include blah, 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 blah. The main research objective to ascertain the perceived attitude influence of social media advertising amongst Gen Z in Cape Town. And this is one of my master students' topics, by the way, or was one of their topics. So and then the specific objectives to examine the influence of social media advertising on Gen Z's purchase intention. So this is the dependent variable, whereas attitudes are looking at all of these variables. The end point on the model is intention to purchase. So hence that's a specific objective. To establish the usage factor. So in the questionnaire, there was which product categories do you use? How often do you use social media? How long do you spend on social media? So, and then to explore demographics influences on attitude. So that could be gender, could be their specific age, could be your education, income, those type of things you could include. Then the research questions pretty much are exactly the same as the research objectives. They are linked to it, except they're asked as a question. And so essentially the primary research question is a reformulation of the research problem. The primary research question is linked to the secondary research question is closely linked to the primary research question. This should be I think I've got a typo I need to correct on page slide 5.1. It should be a link to the primary research objective because I've stated the same thing twice. Right, so here's an example. So where you had initially to establish the perceived attitude influence, now you have what is the perceived attitude influence. Here we had a question to ascertain the influence. Now you have what is the influence of social media advertising, and the other examples. So the objectives are now simply stated. You can see the objectives: to examine, to establish, to explore. You now turn them into a question: what influence, what influence, what influence. Also steer clear of the word impact. because impact has the connotation of being an impact study, which is pretty much reserved for doctoral studies. So rather use the word influence or effect or something like that. Depending, obviously, if you're doing quantitative or qualitative research. Qualitative research, it's similar, except these questions and objectives would be then based on the themes that or categories that you envisage to find from your research. But there needs to be 100% correspondence. So, if you have three secondary research questions, you're going to have three objectives, you're going to have three secondary research questions. Then you have hypothesis depending on your research. Obviously, it's not for qualitative studies. You have propositions maybe in a qualitative study, but in a quantitative study, you have a hypothesis. It's a statement that predicts the relationship between two variables. It's assumption that is made up front. Hypotheses need to be clear and testable. Generally, does not have both research questions and hypothesis. Well, you generally do. I'm going to actually take that out. 5.2, just making a note. Generally, one does not. You generally do have both. So I will take that statement back. Yeah, so I need to go that. So examples of hypothesis is here. Entertainment has a positive effect on millennials' intention to purchase. Informative has a positive on purchase intention. And so you can see, I'll show you what the conceptual framework is. So these come from the conceptual framework, which looks like this, as an example. So here, entertainment, purchase intention. You're looking at those relationships, looking at this relationship. These are relationships, but they're indirect because we're going to look at mediating effects. So perceived usefulness mediates the positive effect of entertainment on purchase intention is hypothesis HA. So that there could be a direct relationship. So that would be part of this mediation relationship. But anyway, we'll get to that later. Let's go back. So that's where those hypotheses come from your conceptual framework. Yeah, perceived usefulness mediates a positive effect between entertainment and purchase intention. So these are examples from the study that this master student's doing. So it's very important that there's full alignment between your title, your introduction, your problem statement, your objectives, your questions, your hypothesis, and the theoretical and conceptual frameworks. And so refer to the illustrative example here. So this is the biggest problem, is often I get students that give me a certain title, they give me certain research questions, certain objectives, and nothing's in alignment. They all need to point in one direction. If there's anything not in alignment, it's very quick to tell, which means that you actually aren't 100% sure what you're doing. So very important that everything feeds into everything. To go to the theoretical framework, this will help you. If you know what framework you're using right from the beginning, you need to choose this, whether it's qualitative or quantitative research, you need to select based. And this comes through reading. So once you know your topic, read journal articles and theses, see what theoretical frameworks they use, and you could use one or you could combine two to form something new. Is very important. So a theoretical framework explains time and tested theories. It frames the study. It considers prior research. Stated differently, the theoretical framework provides background information that must emanate from the theoretical model in the study. It should explain the how and why. The narrative should show the where it has been used by who and a summary of their findings. So once you know what framework you're using, you can search for other studies that have used it, which would then make, with similar topics, which would then make their search more relevant to the constructs or the variables that you are looking at. Oops, I keep using the down arrow and it doesn't work for okay. So here's an example. The example in this study that we're using is the TAM model. This was created by Davis. There were two other versions. There was TAM2 and TAM3 later, and basically looks at external variables' effect on perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. It's usually got to do with technology, so social media, internet, it's commonly used there. On behavioral intentions, which could be purchase intention or purchase. On actual usage, which could be actual purchase. A lot of people use that. So the three variables that we've taken from this model is perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, and behavioral intention we've taken as purchase intention. And the other model, gosh, I keep clicking the down arrow, is the advertising value model by Duffcoat, which looked at entertainment, informativeness, irritation, advertising value, and attitude. The three variables we mainly taken here is entertainment, informativeness, and irritation. So this attitude could also be a purchase intention. So these are the three main variables. So, hey, I hit the down arrow again. So your theoretical framework, so in your literature, literally, and in your right at the beginning, in the first part of your background to the research problem, but in your literature, you would include discussions on TAM. Well, in your proposal framework, you would include discussion on TAM, advertising value model, and the attitudes, the 7 attitudes you're looking at: entertainment, informative. Credibility is often added to the advertising value model. So that's not the model I showed you now, but there's support for it, irritation, and these variables. So in your theoretical framework in the proposal, you would discuss this, but you could include this already in the first part of your background to your research problem, and you would again could discuss it in your literature as well. So then the conceptual framework is your own position based on the theoretical framework. So yeah, I'll just give you a few. The problem gives direction, illustrating what the researcher should expect to find to the research, the variables, the hypothesized relationships, how the variables relate to each other. The conceptual framework can be written and in visual format. So generally you want to see both. And so based on these two models, this is what we came up with. So we took 3 variables from TAMS, and this is a 4th variable from at least the advertising value model. We took these 4 variables. We're looking at the mediating effect on perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use on intention person based on these variables. And we're looking at the direct effect of these 4 variables and the direct effect of perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use and purchase intention. So this is our so once you've got to the stage in your research that you can develop a model like this, you know what you're doing. It allows you to search for very specific information, which would allow you to complete your proposal with ease. But until you've reached the stage where you know what theoretical framework you're looking at and what your conceptual framework looks like, you're going to have problems. And you can have a conceptual framework for a qualitative study as well. You should more or less have a good idea of what you will find before you start the study, because you would have read extensively what other people have found. Obviously, you may find something different, in which case your conceptual framework will change later, because often you find divergent findings for qualitative research I'm speaking about specifically. Then you can just adapt your conceptual framework. But based on extensive reading, you should have a good idea of what your results for qualitative and quantitative research. You should have a good idea already. And that's only going to come through reading. So until you can reach this point in your study, I truly say you actually don't know what you're doing. There's always going to be doubt. But once you reach this point, you have a clear map of what you need to do for all the sections before and afterwards. So the conceptual framework underpinning, I keep clicking the down arrow. Right. So now we move to the literature review. So this includes a review on books, journal articles, academic papers, online sources, newspapers, etc. It's important to move from broad to specific in your literature review and have a golden thread. It generally comprises of the background to the research problem, the overview of the actual problem, past and current research, and the theoretical framework, you also include. However, you're not writing a textbook, so you're not just cutting and pasting from sources. You need to add your critical voice or your thoughts to form the intellectual debate that adds to agrees or disagrees with the author's views. Continually affirm how the study will contribute and fit in with the study. So write a section and then say, hence, this will fit into this study, or this study will, our study. You can't use first person, but you say this study will address this literature by considering X, Y, and Z. So you do that for every paragraph. You try and add your own voice, agreeing or disagreeing with the authors to some extent, the end of each paragraph at least. Do not simply cut and paste entire sections. This is plagiarism. Okay. Reference, summarize, combine your sources. I'm going to show you how to do this and add your own voice. Referencing, be sure to in-text reference all sources, include each source in your reference list. Use the CPUT official Harvard reference style. That's another presentation, but I can also, email that to you as well. Consult sources that are mainly 5 years or younger, except for classical foundational sources. So you want to have the current sources. It's no use having and this is not, I'm not talking about just the literature review, I'm talking about your whole proposal and your whole thesis. Generally, I'd say a rule of 2 recent sources to 1 older source is acceptable. So 2/3 of your sources 5 years or younger, and the 1/3, the foundational sources, can be older. And also, obviously, just before you submit your thesis, if you're submitting your thesis now in 2024, make sure you update your whole thesis before submitting it with a lot of 2024 sources. Very important. A lot of people do their literature review, say 2 years ago, and now they want to submit their thesis and they don't go back to the literature. And everything else, your research proposal becomes your chapter 1 in your thesis. So usually you do your chapter 1 last. Once you've finished all your other chapters, then you go back to your proposal and you have to fully update it to the current year that you submit. So please remember that tip. Right. So I just thought I would put a note on AI here. And my rule of thumb is do not ask AI to write any of the content, any of you content. I picked up another space. I totally revamped this literature review AI. You're not you. I need to just iron out these little mistakes. Any of your content is also a form of plagiarism because you're not writing it, someone else is writing it for you. It may be a computer. I say MB Turnitin and AI editing tools and detection tools. MB Turnitin. Okay, so we had a discussion on Turnitin and AI language editing and detection tools in my PG group. Okay, and basically what we discovered is because I don't mind if people use AI language editing tools such as Grammarly and that, never use it to summarize anything. You can use it to paraphrase because it paraphrases word by word and then you can choose what. But yeah, let's just first go back. Hit that accidentally. Oh, I just want to get back. Sorry to. Oh, why can't I get back to the AI slide overview? Yes. So what I suggest you do is when you write is first extract, summarize, and re-rate information from sources yourself in your own words. Place it under certain headings, okay? Then you can merge it with other sources later. Okay, so that's first each. I'm going to show you how to summarize now, the formula I use to summarize sources. Thereafter, use spelling and grammar check tools in Word to correct your language. And thereafterwards, you can go to tools such as Quillbot or Grammarly to fix your language. However, be very careful when using language editing functions where it suggests whole sentences. Because if it's suggesting a whole sentence, often this is detected by AI. And we often use originality.ai and ZeroGP. I'll mention that later. So I'm very skeptical if it suggests the whole sentence. Change words, fix your grammar, but I did this for a journal article and I subscribed to Quillbot and it changed whole sentences. And when I cut it into ZeroGPT, it picked it up all as AI and I thought, hang no. So I've learned myself, be careful. NB Turnitin often detects AI usage when whole sentences are replaced by language sites, and it's not even a good source for this. So if Turnitin picks up AI, then you know you're in trouble because it's not good for AI. And then if you click on the AI percentage, it's going to show you what. And lastly, I suggest any work, if you've used Quillbot or Grammarly, cut and paste into Zero GPT and Originality.ai. So do Turnitin, Zero GPT, and if two of the sources are clean, you're fine. If one source has a positive, that's okay. Assuming though, obviously you have not asked like ChatGPT or another source to write it for you, then you're not clear. Never use it. So, in my opinion, it's best to use several sites since one does not pick up the other will, but it's best to steer clear of AI, of anything to do with generative academic writing. So, user defined sources, use things like Quillbot or Grammarly to fix your language. Don't ask it to write anything for you because you'll run into problem. And as I say, it's a form of plagiarism. So, that's just my bit on it. Yeah. Oh, and I keep hitting the down arrow. So other literature, a few tips I'm just mentioning, reflect on the data, background, gaps, etc. Have you reviewed literature? You can read through them. I'm not going through it. What I want to show you is how to summarize literature sources. And this is the starting point. Before you start with a proposal, this is what you need to do. Before you do anything, background to research problem or anything, once you know your topic, this is what you need to do. Search, read, summarize, and rewrite each journal article, thesis, survey, industry, or company. We'll probably finish at 7, I would say, looking at the time now, by the way. So if people have left, then, you can get the video. So search, read, summarize, rewrite each journal article, thesis, survey, industry, company. The summaries can be captured in a table, which I'll show you now. If you summarize 2 articles a day, you can have 60 articles in a month. And once you've summarized 60 articles, that should be enough for you to start your thesis. Generally, I want my students to have read at least 100 journal articles first and summarize them. Then I know they've read, and recent sources, then I know they've read enough to finish them. Other supervisors are happy with 20 journal articles. I say you still don't know what you're doing after 20 journal articles. So it's reading a lot. And, in your research proposal, most of my students' research proposals reference lists are longer than the content because they've read widely. By the time my students are done with their research proposals, they're ready to start writing their thesis and collecting their data. Because it's no use if people just read 10 or 20 sources and now you write a proposal. In my opinion, you still don't know what you're doing. So summarize them. Even if you summarize 1 article a day, you can have summarized 100 articles in 100 days, which is in 3 months. So, yeah. Include the following in the research methodology section. As I say, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. How do you run a marathon or comrades? 1 step at a time. So you just summarize 1 journal article a day. Include the following in the research methodology sections, which could serve as observed potential gaps. Remember the third part of the background to the research problem. Include the following in the method. So where the study was conducted, the country, the survey, which groups, how many respondents, so it's all those things that I mentioned in the background to the research problem. Include a reference list below the table. So here's an example. And this is what I did for my doctoral study. This is what I did for journal articles I wrote. If I just stop hitting the down button. So here's how you could summarize your articles. And your summaries could be much longer than this I've just given. So give the authors, the purpose of the study specifically related to your topic. So don't give their general aims. Give the objectives that are related to what you are studying. Give the methodology so you can see administered survey, snowball sampling method, 416 respondents, mainly millennials, Saudi Arabia. All of this you could now use in the observed section. So I just need to drink something. Summarize the main results that relate to your research, and then identify gaps. So the study assesses millennials and non-millennials. So other cohorts, Gen X and Z, should be studied. They stated this.
So this is for your section 3 of the background to your research problem. This is for the section 4, the mandated research. So here they did, social media marketing. And they're saying there's a need for more research amongst Gen Z. They said customer engagement was a moderator, but could analyze other demographic variables. Our objectives looked at other demographic variables. So here's 2 points of justification that you can include in your background to your research problem, the 4th section. And this you could all include in the 3rd section, observed. Here's a second article. It was on Instagram advertisements, mainly Gen Z and millennials. Online survey, Malaysia used the SOR model and advertising value model. It found this. The study confirmed Malaysian users and said further research should be conducted in other cultural settings or countries. No product categories are considered, so different product categories should be considered. In the usage characteristic in your research, in this example, they're going to look at different categories, so that mandates it. Only Instagram was studied, so other social media platforms should be looked at. So we could look in the questionnaire, we're going to consider all different platforms. So this would be mandated research in the 4th section of your background to research problem, and these could be the 3rd section. And then you see you've already referenced it. So how I've referenced it correctly below. Yeah, and put the DOI links. But then you could also extract secondary information from these articles. So in other words, they cited a lot of authors. So you could look in their literature review and their introduction. And then you could also place, summarize and paraphrase this information under relevant headings in your proposal, or relevant literature review headings, or relevant methodology headings that you've extracted by already rewriting. But always cite and find the original source. So if they cite someone, that's who you cite, and not necessarily the article thesis, unless the article you took it from added their own input. So they could have cited the source but then said something themselves. Then you can cite both sources. So you can extract the sources they referenced, you can use to help also write your content, and combine it, and then you cite the original source but could also cite the source you took it from. In the final thesis, a much more complete and extensive reference list will be presented. Refer to the literature PowerPoint. That's how to find sources. So this is how I summarize things. And so literally I have 100 or 200 journal articles. Even when I'm writing an article summarized like this, then you see how easy it makes you to write your background to your research problem and your problem statement. If you've read enough, you've summarized it, you've extracted the information on their findings and all the secondary resources they've used. Right, then in your proposal, there's key concepts and glossaries. So let's clarify, define the key concepts. Basically, all the different variables in your title, problem statement, objectives. So, here you would have social media advertising. You would have all your constructs, entertainment, irritation. You would have TAM, advertising value model. You would have Generation Z. You would provide definitions of these. The methodology I'm going to go through quite quickly, but basically it's the cornerstone of your research. It's a succinct framework of your perceived research, and would form the basis of your methodology chapter. So it's a summary of what would ultimately be your methodology chapter. The same headings apply. What I advise my students to do is find 5 to 10 methodology textbooks. There are a lot of free open access textbooks if you go to the library website, and here's a link. And then I advise my students to provide firstly a brief theoretical framework. And the reason we use so many books is you could look at the theoretical explanation and not understand what they're saying in 5 of the books, but understand what they're saying maybe in 3 of the books. And if you understand what they're saying, then you can say, okay, hence this theoretical framework is this blah, blah, blah. And then you apply. Therefore, this study will, you write in future tense, you would consider X, Y, and Z. But we'll get to that now. And you can also state maybe why you didn't select others. But do not discuss every research element. So do not discuss qualitative and quantitative research if you're only doing quantitative research. only discuss then quantitative research. You're not writing a textbook. Focus on the elements that are mainly relevant to your study. You could state, okay, we did not select qualitative research because, but you don't need to explain what qualitative research is, okay, if your study is quantitative. So the first element is the paradigm. So basically it's common beliefs of scientists of how they view problems. So there's two very good articles which I can email you, Brown and Dunas and Haydem and Steenkamp have two good articles that are good for your methodology chapters. I've also put all of this on Blackboard as well. And so examples of this are positivist, post-positive for quantitative, interpretivist, postmodernism for qualitative. Others are constructivist, critical theory, and a host of others. So what I suggest is, say you're doing, in this case, we're doing quantitative research, you'd say positivism is this, and you give 2-3 sources and you define positivism. And then you state, hence, this study is using the positive construct because we're mainly looking at quantitative aspects of X, Y, Z. You justify the usage of it. You apply it to your research, and then you justify it. So you give the definition from 2-3 sources, apply, and motivate to your study. Then the research method flows from the paradigm. So you're either doing qualitative, quantitative, or mixed, which could be deductive or inductive. So deductive is generally quantitative research. It's positive, moves from general to specific, to e.g. to prove a hypothesis. Generally with quantitative research, inductive is interpretivism or interpretivism. Moves from specific to general, new theory model, typically qualitative. So you can again provide definitions of quantitative or qualitative research and say, hence, this research is using quantitative or qualitative because X, Y. Define, apply, use 5 studies. Research design, so you get archival, exploratory, descriptive, observational, causal. You get longitudinal versus cross-sectional. Generally descriptive or cross-sectional is a do question, exploratory, observation, and case study is generally qualitative and a why question. So again, you would define whichever terms you're using through multiple textbooks, state, justify, and apply to your research. Why is it most appropriate? Sampling, so the population, who is the research population? So this is all the possible units from where the sample will be drawn. E.g., if your focus is students in Cape Town, then, or specific community, that would be the research population. Collectively, the study constitutes the population. So who will it be selected from? So the total research population is everyone that could be selected for participation in the study. Your sample frame is a list of the sample units that must be suitable for data collection, e.g. it could be CPUT students. The sample unit is the basic element that contains the information that you want. So in other words, the CPUT students must be exposed to social media advertising. The sample element is the smallest element, so this would be a social media advertising student who is a Generai Z user. So again, you would define each of these concepts and apply to your study based on your research population. Sample size and methods, so probability, there's a host of different methods, simple, random, systematic, stratified, cluster, multi. Non-probability is generally qualitative research, and quantitative as well. Convenience, quota, purpose, snowball. A lot of my students use snowball and convenience sampling. Define the most appropriate technique. Oops, we jumped. Define the chosen technique, justify why. So you would select one or the other. Say most of my students use a convenience sample, basically people that know, and then they ask those people for recommendations for other people they could survey, and that would be snowballing. But you can read up, define. Very few of you will actually use a probability sampling method because it's very expensive to use it for quantitative research, and there is no probability sampling really for qualitative research. Generally it would be non-probability. So define this, apply it, and state why you chose this technique. Determinants of sample size. So if you're doing quantitative statistics, generally 30 per subcategory. So if you've got 10 different product categories, you need at least 30 respondents for each product category. Which means even if you have a sample size of 30, it doesn't mean they're going to be evenly spread. It means you've got to go bigger. And every construct item, so you saw we had 7 constructs, and if each construct consisted of 4 statements in your questionnaire, that's 28 multiplied by 10, you would need 280. So based on this, you're probably looking at a sample of about 400. You're generally safe for quantitative statistics of a sample of 400, because that should cater for the whole world if you have that type of sample size. But a lot of people go much less, because if you're doing a quantitative survey amongst businesses, then obviously that's harder to achieve. So quantitative 384 for probability, but dependent on subcategories, as I mentioned above. Qualitative generally 10 to 50, but the concept of data saturation, of continually adding new participants until no new information can be gathered, applies. So most of my students, my qualitative students, do 10 to 15 interviews, in-depth or semi-structured interviews. It generally suffices, but other people prefer to go bigger, particularly for a doctoral study. So masters, they, generally you're safe at up to 20, you're safe. Yeah. Data collection instruments, so you need to know what data collection instrument will be used. So this could be quantitative, could be a questionnaire, which could be survey, telephone, face-to-face. It could be experiments. Qualitative could be observation, interviews, a document review, focus groups. So what information was used to develop the instrument? So you're going to have one or the other, interview or some type of survey. I don't think many of you are going to use experiments. That's more for the sciences. So you need to know what this instrument looks from, and you've got to draw or develop your questionnaire or your interview questions from existing research. Don't just make it up, because in terms of reliability and validity, you need to extract your constructs for your questionnaire from other questionnaires that displayed reliability and validity. If you just make up things, you're not going to achieve that. And if your quantitative results are not reliable or valid, you can collect 1,000 questionnaires and you could end up throwing that data away. It happened to one of my students. He did like 1,000 interview surveys, and I did the reliability, and it was 0. And he had to start collecting again. So make sure you take your constructs from existing research. Likewise with qualitative, get your questions from other studies. You've read wide enough, you can email the authors and say, could you please send me your interview guide, or could you please send me your questionnaire? They're generally very happy to oblige. I've had a lot of people email me over the years for various of my questionnaires, and I've sent it to them happily. So remember this, and your questionnaire is going to give you the answers to your hypothesis, to your conceptual framework, to your ultimately your research problem. So e.g. one could use existing previous instruments. Data collection fieldwork, how will we access it? So again, remember, in each case you give theory and you apply. So you could collect data telephonic, online, electronic, email, face-to-face, observational. Define the processes. Why is it relevant? These days, a lot of people collect their data online, so you could use Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, or something else to distribute a link via social media, mobile platforms, and you can still distribute questionnaires physically now that COVID has passed. Teams, Zoom, Google Meet can be used to collect data qualitatively. You can obviously do it face-to-face, but a lot of people, it's more convenient just to meet that way. Then you can meet anyone in the whole world. It actually opens up the world. You're not limited to South Africa anymore. And I keep hitting that down arrow. I was so good for a while. Okay. Right. Data coding. So how will the data be captured? How would it be coded? For Atlas TI, SPSS, start with descriptive stats. And then display your data in a thesis. You can have numerical and graphical displays, whereas when you write journal articles, you generally use just numerical tables. So you need to describe and justify the selection of your data analysis. So you could have means, median, standard deviations, distributions, ANOVA, regression, GLM, structural equation modeling. You probably won't know too much about that at your proposal stage, but obviously get your supervisor guide you. Qualitative, you'll do content analysis, hermeneutics, conversational, discourse analysis, narrative analysis. So explain why, obviously, you're going to use these techniques. It obviously depends on your research questions, objectives, and hypothesis as to your data coding and analysis. It's quite a difficult section for you to write at proposal stage if you're doing your master's, because it's all new to you. But your supervisor can help you with that. And I keep hitting this down arrow. Right. Then the next section, we're nearly there, by the way, demarcation, delimitation, which aspects of the research will be targeted, provide reasons why these areas were selected. So, in other words, what are the boundaries of your research? So, if you're only looking at university students or just Gen Z, why not other cohorts? You need to explain why. So, you need to state only students will be looked at, that we're using this because it would make the study too big, or because they are fast growing and they use this platform the most. So you could use variables from your background to your research problem to justify this. Limited to the Cape Town region, not the whole of South Africa. Say obviously budget constraints and time and access to the actual sample are reasons for this. Only social media advertising, not other digital platforms such as mobile or AI. Again, you've got to explain, give reasons. It might be indicate what will not be covered by the study. Then ethical considerations. So you need to describe, the ethics, the informed consent, privacy, honesty, summary code of conduct. What do these mean? Define each of these concepts. You need to consider. This is South African Market Research Association Code of Conduct. And you can read the CPUT ethics documents. You can read the Rec 5 form. You can read the informed consent form, which you will have access to on Blackboard. Read them, and they also give you ethical considerations you could use to help write this section. Then you need to provide an outline of your thesis. So chapter 1 is your introduction and background. Chapter 2 could be chapter 2, 3, and 4. It could be 2 or 3 chapters even, is your literature review. But chapter 3, methodology. Chapter 4, findings. Chapter 5, discussion. Chapter 6, so you need to provide that. Then you provide your research plan. So with possible dates and milestones. An alternative to this plan, though, is sometimes when my students get ethical clearance, I let them go straight to the field work because, as I said, they've already read widely enough and they know what their topic's about. So then once you've found your data, obviously they're working on their literature review and their methodology section while they're doing this. But once you know what your results are, it then allows you to write your literature review more accurately because you know exactly what you found. And then limitations. So these are possible hindrances or barriers that compromise your research plans. You look at methodology or coverage, generalizations. So people don't want to participate. You can't get access to certain groups, etc., etc. So here's a few examples of this. The research study was conducted in a developing country where it was not broadly investigated. The quantitative studies, here's examples. Cross-analysis was done, not, longitudinal, and those type of things. So examples. Then the reference list. So all the sources you cited in your proposal and later your thesis are in-text referenced in alphabetical order, and any source you don't cite is not included in the reference list because it's not a bibliography. Includes sources that you don't cite. I refer you to a few documents. I refer you to the research plagiarism page on the CPUT LibGuides website, and they give you some good links. The CPUT official referencing guide can be accessed by these 2 sources, and other referencing documents on the library website can. Take note, et al. Is not in italics. And also refer to 2 YouTube videos I made for my advanced diploma students. These 2 YouTube videos will show you how to reference. Based on the CPUT Harvard and the quick guide to Harvard documents, which are more or less the same. And then you have to end off with a summary. in 250 words. So once you finish the whole thesis, then you do this. Take note, no new content is included. It's based on, what you previously discussed, by referring to factors not previously discussed, and generally there's no in-text referencing. So it's a summary in 250 words is the last part of your proposal. And we have come to the end of this presentation. It was quite long. And here's notes, by the way. So this PowerPoint I've also put in note format, not PowerPoint format, a bit more spaced out. So I'll also make these notes available on Blackboard. And so they're a bit more detailed, so a little bit more, but so I'll put both the PowerPoint and these notes on as well. But before I make this available on Blackboard, I will upload this on YouTube, and I'll replace this YouTube video link with the 2024 link from today's workshop. Close current tab, and I'll close that. And I'll